Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with The Thief of Baghdad. Now, this is not the Miklos Rosa score from, what was it, like 1940, 41, from the talkies. This is the original silent movie film score. The movie starred Douglas Fairbanks by Mortimer Wilson, who lived from 1876 to 1932. And this is a juicy score. There's 75 minutes of music with only some minor, repetition things chopped out, wonderfully reconstructed by Mark Fitz-Gerald. And it's absolutely glorious in the recording. It's recording with the Frankfurt Radio Symphony. Now, this score was actually commissioned, specifically requested by Douglas Fairbanks himself. He wanted a really good symphonic score. And he told Wilson, who was quite an accomplished composer in the Germanic style of the day, Leipzig and places like that, told him to just go to town on it, have a great time. And he did. I mean, there's a 6-minute overture to this thing. There's a lot of music and some very continuous music and shapely music formally. It is not overwhelmingly, what's the word? Well, it's pre-Korngold, pre-Max Steiner, for that matter. I mean, 1924 was really early in the history of film scoring, and movies with original scores full of continuous music, they were very rare and expensive. And what happened here apparently was that it was played, the original score, a few times, and then they dropped it. They played other stuff. They played pastiche music by other composers. I mean, it was written very cleverly, actually, Wilson, for a not ridiculously sized orchestra so that it could be performed in theaters everywhere. Because remember, theaters in those days had pits, orchestra pits. I mean, movie palaces were beautiful. Gold lame, fabulous curtains that parted. I mean, they were like opera houses, of course, for the those with lower incomes, essentially. But they were absolutely magnificent, and they had orchestras, or they had Wurlitzer organ things eventually to take the place of very expensive orchestras. And this was, one of those rare moments. The only film scores that were of similar amplitude and variety, really, from this immediate period, was something like, Shostakovich, something like the New Babylon or something like that, a really big symphonic score. And so this is very important. I mean, and it's not just important, it's delightful to listen to. It's quite marvelous. And it is fun to listen to film music from the pre-glamorous Hollywood sound composers. Because you can tell that this guy, it's interesting, Wilson, he was a well-trained American composer of the Germanic school. It's sort of cautiously post-Wagnerian music. It doesn't have that glitter that we expect from Hollywood film scores, and it's not sentimental or schlocky either. I mean, not a bit. It's a serious, absolutely faithful audio transcription of what seems to be going on in the film. Douglas Fairbanks would have been extremely pleased with it, you have a sense. And so the fact that this is available now, I really think from a film score point of view, and just from a general musical point of view, is a big deal. It gives us a very different picture of the Hollywood sound than what we're used to. And I enjoyed it enormously. I think you will too. It's on the what's this weird little label here? PJS. Yes, PJS label, First Hand Records, actually. I don't know what the PJS is for, actually. I don't know what that is. But it says here, firsthandrecords.com. You can look it up that way, and I'm sure you can purchase it that way if you can't find it readily. And I do suggest, if you really like film music, if you're into this sort of thing, as I am, that you grab it while you can. Because it's wow. It's so nice that people are still doing this. We don't give enough credit to the people who engage in this detective work and reconstructing these pieces and finding the parts and putting it together and making these decisions so that we can hear these marvelous, marvelous scores, which, remember, the difference between this and one of the talkie scores is that this is what the audience would have heard because the orchestra was live. The music was live. Whereas when we hear these film scores, the later film scores, there was dialogue over them, there was sound effects, there was all this other stuff going on, and the music was thrust into the background, and you really didn't even know what they were writing half the time, and nobody particularly cared. It was just atmosphere. Whereas this was a real happening in sync with the movie, and I think that makes a difference. I would be curious to see what you think. Listen to it and let me know if you agree with that proposition. But this was music that was meant to be heard, seriously meant to be heard. Not that some of the later stuff wasn't meant to be heard too, but this guy knew it would be heard. And I think that makes a difference. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.